It's something that I'm always going to go back to. That was my first trip, so everything from now on, I'm going to compare to this trip.
You know, initially, I was concerned about the physical requirements of the trip.
It was hard, harder than you could anticipate.
I think the only thing that really frightened me was being that far out on our own.
A lot of us didn't know what this trip was going to be like. We hadn't backpacked before. So the 5 days ahead of us were just an unknown that we were just kind of putting out into the universe, and we were going to wait to see what happens.
Yosemite National Park will be closing today due to dangerous conditions from a nearby wildfire. It is the first time the park has been closed in nearly 30 years.
The Ferguson fire has burned about 38,000 acres in California's Sierra Nevada.
We're seeing variable air quality, but it's the sustained exposure that concerns us.
Insert John Muir quote here. Really. Go ahead. Choose your favorite. It was, after all, the father of Yosemite's vivid writings that drew me here in the first place. This time, however, I invited my brother and our 3 friends to backpack the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne.
My name is Matt Abbey. I'm from Cortland, Ohio, and I'm in law enforcement.
I'm Dana Toro, and I'm a chief operating officer of a marketing company in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Chris Brenley from Mineral Ridge, Ohio, and I'm in accounting.
My name is Matt Lemley. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm a cybersecurity traveling IT consultant.
The Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne is a one-way, 30-mile trip following the Tuolumne River. It begins just off Tioga Road at the White Wolf Lodge, when it suddenly drops you 3,500 feet down into the valley. To complete this journey, you must climb 4,200 feet back out, alongside raging waterfalls and granite cliffs.
Hopping off the bus and walking down our trail on the first day was a surreal experience.
You see just how big and grand everything is.
We had no idea what was to come.
We may or may not have started on the wrong trailhead and went a few miles out of our way.
It was kind of a little bit of a rough start.
What we didn't know at the time is that there are 2 trailheads that begin at the White Wolf Lodge, both heading to Hardin Lake.
We saw a sign, and I think it was the first sign that we saw, and everybody just assumed that was the right path. Gave us a little of a detour. I think we got the scenic route.
Right off the bat, that kind of set us back a little bit. So I still don't know how it happened.
First thoughts, the lake was really cool.
It was a welcome sight because it was a steep uphill ascent, and we were all exhausted. You know, once we got everything set up, food was pretty high on everybody's agenda.
We fired up the cookers and we made our meals, and everybody passed around the dishes family style, and we dined right there next to the lake.
After a longer than expected first day, the guys shuffled into their tents early to get some much needed rest for day number 2.
The second day was a trial by fire. Hiking down endless switchbacks down into the valley was grueling.
Honestly, day 2 to me was probably one of the most challenging It was a very long descent down into PATE Valley.
We could see the river way down below, and it looked like a dot. By the time we got all the way down to the bottom of the valley, we were running low on water, energy, and kind of spirit at that point. We were trying to find the first place that we could camp.
Yeah, getting down to the river, I actually ran out of water. I had 5 liters in my backpack and a liter in my bottle, and I was completely empty, so we started sharing water for a little bit.
For me personally, being at that altitude and descending down, it was tough because we had some really ridiculous crossings, and my fear of heights kicked in pretty extreme. So I wasn't in love with some of the very narrow crossings across, open rock and whatnot. But I don't know if there was a single flat surface in Yosemite.
There was one obstacle approaching that each of us would have to deal with on our own.
Yeah, once we made it down into the valley, we knew that we had a river crossing.
Crossing the river was interesting. We were walking up and down looking for an area that seemed like it was a low enough current and shallow enough that we could get across, and we quickly realized that wasn't going to be a possibility.
And then we found the bridge, and the bridge was out.
The group quickly had a little debate whether this was the actual bridge, as it was just some railroad ties that were 15 or 20 feet above pretty raging water.
The bridge was basically washed out. It wasn't there. No guardrails on it or anything like that. It was basically just a walk the plank scenario.
So we decided that we needed to take our time and take our turns crossing the bridge.
I don't remember who was the first one to go across. I know it wasn't Dana.
I think I was first, and I just wanted to do it first so I didn't have to see anybody else fall in, or I'd already be across.
I was pretty confident that we would be able to get across.
I had never quite experienced real fear until I was with 4 friends stuck between a granite cliff scattered with venomous rattlesnakes and a raging river that could sweep us away in an instant.
One of the rangers told us a story that happened a week earlier about a camper that was bit by a rattlesnake,
And somehow he was able to hike, 25 miles out by himself. So that kind of freaked everybody out. But actually seeing that somebody took the time to carve snakes into a piece of bark, that kind of get you going, and everybody had their eyes peeled. I remember walking along. We had a rock wall on our left, and then there was a drop off to the river on our right, and there was only 3 or 4 feet of a path. And I remember walking through all these rocks and just all of a sudden hearing a rattlesnake. So everybody stopped, and I think Dana ended up falling down and almost kissing the rattlesnake.
the thing that really scared me was there was a bunch more behind him, and all of them started rattling at the same time. It was like a den of them right there. And that's what I didn't like. I jumped immediately. As soon as that one started rattling, I jumped, and then I heard all those other ones, and then I freaked out. Like, holy smokes.
It's a pretty nervous feeling running past a snake in the middle of nowhere.
There was a hush that came over us. So
Everyone settled in around the campfire that evening, passing around a water bag full of rum, sharing their harrowing versions of the snake encounters of the day. But one thing is certain, PATE Valley will forever be known as Snake Alley in our minds.
Day 3 was an interesting one. We got a little bit of time to sit in the river and play, and we took the camera out and got some shots in the water, and we really just got to relax because we planned a zero hike day, but we realized we had to cover a little bit of ground. So we started moving, and the weather started getting weird.
it looked like it was going to downpour. At one point it was like hailing on us.
And as the rain started coming, we decided to take a break at the top of one particular hill.
I remember walking up the path and we saw some droppings that looked pretty fresh.
An enormous bear just walked out of the woods and then stepped onto a rock. And it was the weirdest thing. For 1 second, it was like this bear was seeing the same thing and appreciating the same thing that I was. And I was kind of speechless. I was looking at him, and then it dawned on me, this was a bear.
Dana just shouts out, "Bear!" And everybody looks up.
And probably 150 yards away was this large bear sitting in a patch of sunlight with the rain coming down, just staring at us. And just as he turned and walked away, the rain stopped, the clouds opened up, and it just became sunny again. We moved on as a group, stamping our feet, hooting and hollering, and making a lot of noise just to try and keep that bear at bay.
That was probably the loudest we've been on that trail during the whole trip. And thankfully, we never encountered it again.
For the next 20 minutes, every woodland creature could hear 5 grown men stomping through the forest, yelling, "Hey bear, hey bear," blowing on their not-so-effective bear whistles.
Day 4 was when we realized that in order to get out of the valley that we were impressed by the depth of, we had to climb out of it. So that day consisted of about 13 miles and probably 2,000 to 2,500 feet of elevation.
I think down in the valley it was around 90 to 95 degrees, and we were exposed to the sun the entire time.
And it was grueling, straight up rock cliffs. Steps were kind of carved into the path, but they required of just loose rock that you had to climb all the way up. So the group quickly tired, water was running low, and so were spirits. Everybody was kind of getting short and getting agitated.
The path led us hundreds of feet above the water's edge, which made gathering water nearly impossible along long stretches of the trail.
The elevation sucked. It was just continuous. You just kept going up and up and up.
I was honestly happy with myself just to make it through it, but I was out of breath for basically that entire day.
The trail mirrored the river's winding course as it entered into coniferous forest and back out again onto granite slab, eventually landing the group at a campsite that overlooked an unnamed waterfall just below Wildcat Point.
That was 100% the best campsite. We were next to a bunch of waterfalls. We had a little rock that ran out, a giant slab of rock. We had a beautiful view of the sunset, overlooking the entire valley.
That night, the moon felt like the watchful eye of Mother Nature as we spent a restful evening under the stars.
If you stayed away from the waterfall that would have killed you, it was a good spot to hang out in because you could actually go swimming in it.
Strip down your underwear, jump in the water, scream in the empty valley, and just take on the cold just to try and get a little sense of being clean.
The group left behind their favorite watering hole to begin the final 1,000-foot ascent as they contemplated the completion of their journey.
This trip ranks really high as far as personal accomplishments are concerned.
I don't know where it ranked, but I know that it's something that I'm always going to go back to. That was my first trip, so everything from now on, I'm going to compare to this trip.
It was weird being in a location that was that beautiful and there was nobody there. I fully expected there to be people there. Since then, it's really caused me to kind of do a complete rethink about my life and health and what makes me happy.
Everybody's getting older, so this was just a good time to actually get out and explore with some friends. And as we get older, I don't know how many more chances we're gonna get to actually do this. So it was just awesome to be able to do it. Every night got better and better. Starting with the lake, we're like, this is cool. We got our own lake to ourselves, and then just every night it got better and better.
With the finish line in sight and only a couple miles left to complete, there was really only one more thought to contemplate.
The moment on the trip that made me the happiest was probably when we realized we had found the end, and we had survived, and we were now on the right track, and we were actually wrapping it up.
With a beer in hand, we all congratulated each other on a successful journey. By giving this canyon its due respect, it gave us everlasting memories of a time that 5 friends pulled together against the odds to backpack the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne.
Most annoying person on the trail is an interesting question.
We really didn't have anybody that was annoying, at least not to me.
The most annoying person was 100% your brother, Mr. Matt Abbey.
Chris B was the most annoying on the trip because he was a tent mate.
I drew the short straw and had to bunk with Matt Abbey.
The sleeping situation was kind of a drawn straw situation where we partnered up and everybody was married to their mate.
Matt was my tent partner, and he brought an ultralight, I think under 2 pounds tent.
I was supposed to sleep with Dana, but after one night in the tent with Dana, sleeping 6 inches from his face, sawing logs all night, I couldn't take it.
He decided that he was going to sleep with Azinu, and yeah, so that's what he did.
I am sweating in my tent, sweating in my sleeping bag. I had stripped down, I'm in my underwear in my sleeping bag, and I don't know, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, I just hear rustling around and I hear the tent open, and I wake up and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And Abby's got a sweatshirt on, he's pulled pants on, he's like, it's cold in here, man. And I'm like, go to bed. So that kind of set the stage for his antics for the rest of the trip.
It's always your roommate that's the most annoying.